Decision making as we started the week, and we've been exploring the lenses through which we can make decisions. So, how can we be more aware of that? We've also been, like sort of warming up on the topic of values and how can we get aligned with our values, connect with our values. So, what is if we had to think about what is a value, and we can confuse values with goals. The difference is that a goal is something that we achieve. However, a value is a way in which we choose to live. So, for instance, you know, um, a goal could be to lose weight. However, value could be health. A goal could be, earning a promotion. Value could be, say, excellence. A goal could be growing a business. A value could be contribution. Now, we can sometimes feel lost while making decisions or while going through life because we could um, lose touch with our values, and and that's what we are trying to sort of align ourselves with, that what is that's important to me. So I will maybe read out a few values which sort of are the most common core values. And if you have, say, a pen or paper, you can make a note of if any of these you think are your top three core values, or it could be something else which is not what I say. So yeah, just thinking about what's most important to you as a way to live life, and seeing if we can identify that. So common examples of core values are love, integrity, courage, freedom, growth, learning, family, compassion, contribution, creativity, service, spirituality, adventure, wisdom, authenticity. I can read that out one more time. Love, integrity, courage, freedom, growth, learning, family, compassion, contribution, creativity, service, spirituality, adventure, wisdom, authenticity. Just thinking about which three values do you think you stand for, you want your life to stand for? And with this, we'll try and see about what causes inner conflict, what is wise decision making, and how can we be discerning, because hard decisions sometimes are not about right or wrong. um, and this is something that we talk about advice, that when we give someone advice, we see the situation from our own value and we assess what's important to me. So say, choosing, say, between um, taking up, say, a new job in a different city, or staying close to your family. Now, for somebody whose core value is family, they will they will want to pick that over, say, growth, or over adventure. But if the other person's core value is, say, growth, or learning, they will want to push themselves and choose that option instead. So how we look at decision making is through the lens of our own values. And which is why sometimes, when we tell people what to do, um, it's basically how we are viewing our own lives, or it's what is important to us rather than thinking about what could be important for them. So with that, we'll begin with a short reflection and grounding exercise. So for that, if you're able, making yourself comfortable physically, sitting straight, if that feels okay, closing your eyes and connecting with the body. How is your body feeling today? See if you can relax the body as you exhale, letting go of any stress you might be holding. Releasing with the out breath. With the in breath, taking in fresh, light energy from the universe. With the out breath, releasing any stress, any tension. And following this cycle of breath. With the in breath, more light into the body, all the cells of the body, all organs, all systems of the body. And with the out breath, releasing any worry, stress, tension, anxiety you might be holding. Releasing, letting go with the out breath. And as you feel relaxed and as you feel coming into this moment, you can imagine your mind as, say, a boardroom. And around the table, you have different voices that are sitting. So there could be the voice of the protector, voice of the achiever, the pleaser, the controller, the adventurer, the caregiver, the seeker. And each voice, each person who's sitting there, it wants something different from you, and each believes that it is helping you. So just pausing and asking yourself, which voice has been speaking most loudly to me recently? Which voice? Is it the protector, the achiever? Is it the pleaser, the controller, the adventurer, the caregiver, the seeker? Which voice has been speaking most loudly to me? And which voice have I not listened to recently? Which voice have I not listened to? Just becoming aware of that. Each voice is helping us. And then turning attention once again to the body, attention to the surface you're in contact with, to the space you're in. And then opening your eyes if your eyes were closed. Now, we would have seen that, when we are faced with a difficult decision in life, it's usually not a decision between right and wrong. The most difficult decisions are those which we have to make between two things that both matter a lot. So, if you think about, a hard decision that you ever had to make, um, you would see that every option would cost you something. And decision making then is not really an information problem. Um, it it's sort of, an emotional problem, a values problem. It's a courage problem. Now, we've all been in situations. Say there's a person who knows that they should leave their job. It's not working for them. Maybe the environment isn't great. Maybe the boss is not great, but the job provides security. Now, this person also values freedom. So they're suffering, We want security, but we also want freedom. And we can value both of them. We can value both freedom and security. Another example, we know that we should speak honestly, and we should, we want to say what we really think, but we also value harmony. So we value truth, but we also value harmony, and therefore there is inner conflict because two values are colliding. Um, and and we can get into, the myth of certainty, because it's not like smart people don't struggle to make decisions. So we think and we assume that if I only think long enough, eventually I will become certain. I will know. But we've seen, going through life, going through adulthood, that most important decisions, they don't arrive with certainty. So big decisions in life, they don't give us a look into the future. We can't take a peek into the future and see if this is going to work out for us or not. So whether it's, say, having children, moving countries, changing careers, marriage, divorce, starting a business, life decisions that are big usually don't come with guarantees. There are no guarantees. So then we have to call on to our wisdom to act despite the uncertainty. And and the heart of, say, what we're trying to uh, become aware of today or understand more today is that we don't have one value, and this conflict between values is what can create, what can create this unrest in us, not feeling sure, not knowing where to go, what to do, and then feeling lost. So because we have many values, they frequently conflict. Now, some common values that conflict with each other are freedom and security, as we said, truth and harmony, adventure versus stability, responsibility versus self care, growth versus comfort, authenticity versus belonging. And it's good to know, it's good to know that it's not like we are really confused or we can never decide. Maybe we do care about two things simultaneously, and that's possible. It doesn't have to be either or. I can, I can want to be truthful, but I also want to have harmony, and both things are important. So, so maybe then, yeah, thinking about for yourself that if there are any two values that you hold that are currently pulling you in opposite directions, any any conflict that you feel you can identify with two values that seem to oppose each other. And from, say, a neuroscience perspective or how the brain works, now the brain has evolved to keep us alive. It is not, the first thought or how the brain is wired. It's not working to keep us fulfilled or enlightened or, self actualized. Its primary goal is to keep us alive. So the nervous system will inevitably ask us, will this keep me safe? That's its primary goal. If I do this, will I be safe? If I say this to somebody, will I be safe? However, to give meaning and have more meaning in our lives, the question then to ask ourselves would be, will this help me grow? And these are not always the same answer. So much of our life, of our adulthood, is learning when not to obey the survival brain, and when to recognize that this is my brain just doing its part, which is to make sure that I am safe. However, I know I am safe and I can move on and think about what gives me meaning. Now, we could look at fear as, this one single experience. Um, Fear is fear, but we can have different kinds of fears. Now, there is protective fear. So, something genuinely feels unsafe. If there is a tiger in front of us, there is a genuine threat to life. So that fear is what keeps us looking out for danger, protects us. We're not going to put our hand in boiling water. It ensures that it ensures our safety. But there's also other kinds of fears which actually we could term as fears, but more so they are anxiety. So we could have the fear of looking foolish. We could have the fear of failing, fear of criticism, fear of losing our identity. Now, there's also growth fear. So it's the fear that appears whenever we want to expand beyond the familiar, when we want to do something new, something we don't know, something that is uncertain. It's a path we haven't walked before. Now, these three fears, which is protective fear, ego fear, and growth fear, the problem is that they all three feel very similar in the body. The brain is not really able to discern which is a real fear and which is imagined fear of, say, the future or the projection of the past. So, with practice and with discernment, we can learn to tell them apart. We can learn to identify if the fear is actually trying to help us, protect us, save us, or if it's in disguise, just keeping us stuck where we are and keeping us from growth. Now, some qualities of fear are that it is urgent, it is repetitive. We tend to think the same thoughts negative repeatedly. It is also catastrophic. So it can make us believe, think, imagine the worst case scenarios. Now, what is, but there's also some voice, like we can call it intuition, we can call it gut feeling, we can call it, our, our authenticity. That is probably simpler and steadier. Now, we could have experienced this. I mean, I think a lot of us, or most of us, all of us, at some point experience that whenever we are faced with something, we have to do something which is new, or something that's unfamiliar, something that feels scary. Somewhere inside us, we also know that, you know, this is what I really want to do, or this is what I should be doing, maybe. Yeah, that thought or that voice can get, clouded and subdued by our patterns of thinking, or the repeated negative voices. But there is a voice that speaks to us if we only allow it to talk. How do we do that? We can do that by, say, very simple thing, like just sitting and allowing, the voice to surface. So if we can pause, we can spend time with ourselves without feeling distracted, and enough time with ourselves, then slowly we can begin to connect with that voice. We can practice meditation. We can also practice journaling. So something like auto writing, or where we just sit and without thinking much, we just write whatever comes to our mind for 10 minutes. Put a timer um, and just go with the flow and write whatever comes to us. We could even give ourselves a question, and without any inhibition, just write freely what comes to mind. We can also do a very different kind of technique, which is, say, if I have a dominant hand, say my right hand is my dominant hand, then I write using my left hand. Yeah, it's not the cleanest handwriting, but that helps us in some ways um, break our conventional or hardwired ways of thinking, and at times can bring out thoughts um, or feelings or emotions that are maybe a bit more subdued or suppressed. So these are a few things that we can do to connect with that voice. Now, um, another thing to also sort of, when we are faced with decisions, to be aware of that every decision has a price. So when we choose one thing, we obviously are losing out on something else. So um, we could think that if I choose correctly, I won't lose anything. If I only, make the right decision, spend more time on it, think more about it, I will know, and then I will be able to take a decision which does not have a cost to bear. However, that's not really true, because any path that we take, any decision that we take, um, anything that we choose, it costs us something. So if we choose freedom, we lose some certainty. If we choose certainty, we lose some possibilities. If we choose truth, we may lose approval. If we choose approval, we may lose authenticity. So this makes decision making a bit hard. Not because it's unfair, or uh, why do I have to uh, you know pay a price that I'm not ready for, but because any meaningful choice will close certain other doors, and then it it rests upon us that we should stop finding the path with no loss, because there is going to be some loss, but we can consciously choose which loss we are more willing to bear. And again, there is no right or wrong. So if I don't take up that job and I stay, where I am, because I feel like I can give more time to my kids, it's not right or wrong. It's what is important to me. It's what is more aligned to my value. Yeah, the cost is that I may not get a promotion, or I may not, experience a brand new city or a brand new life. But then if I choose that, the cost to bear is um my kids will not have as much time with me. So then the decision making becomes more about, if I could do both, which is the price that I feel is more bearable to me, which is the price that I think that I would rather pay. And that's one way of making decisions. Something else that I feel like I rely on, and I also encourage people to think about, is that, if the authentic voice in you is not really surfacing, or you feel that you don't really know what you want because it's just so cloudy and it's so busy in your mind, Then a good question to ask is, what would I do if there was no fear? So this could be, say, if I did not fear that I would hurt someone, if I did not fear about what other people would say, if I didn't fear that what if I fail, if I remove all the fears from my mind, what would then be my decision in this situation? What step would I take? And that's an interesting exercise to do, because we are for some time just putting away that anxiety. You're putting away thoughts of other people, thoughts of underconfidence, and we are allowing ourselves to, for just that time, really allow ourselves to want what we want. We could be so afraid to want what we want. So, giving ourselves, and then, yeah, it doesn't mean that we have to act on that decision, but it just helps to know that this is what I really want. Okay, if it comes at this price, am I willing to pay that price or not? And I can, choose accordingly. But the starting point, I think it really helps if we can just let that voice surface and be able to look at, our own wants, our own desires very honestly. So, yeah, we'll do a short practice. And for that, coming into a comfortable position as you're sitting wherever you are, and you could let your eyes close or lower your gaze. And we'll be practicing, if the situation in your life that you think you want to resolve or decide on, small or big, bringing that to mind. And as you bring it to your awareness, taking your attention now to your breath, so that there is more calm, more settlement in our thinking, in our mind, and deepening the breath without forcing it. See if you can make the exhale longer than the inhale. Following the breath from beginning to end. Feeling the breath at your nostril, and then through all the places it makes its journey through. And then thinking about this decision, this question, and asking yourself, what would I do if there was no fear? If nothing external mattered, what would I really want to do? And if familiar fears begin to come up, you can assure yourself, soothe yourself that you just want to connect to that voice. What would I do if there was no fear? And then thinking about the other people, who take their places at the table. So maybe asking the protector, what am I worried about? What am I worried about? Asking the pleaser, what approval am I seeking? What approval am I seeking? And the achiever, what outcome do I want? What outcome do I want? And there's also a child, um, the child in us that's sitting there, asking that child, what am I afraid of losing? What am I afraid of losing? And then one more time, thinking about, if fear was not making this decision, what would I choose? If fear was not into play, what would I choose? And this is just to bring awareness to how we think, awareness to these different parts of us, that can seem to be misaligned, but also feeling gratitude for all of these voices because they are all trying to help us. They are not against us. And we can fail to see that sometimes and blame ourselves or blame that part of us. But see if you can send thanks to all the fears, to all these voices because they want your best. And feeling gratitude also for the body, the mind, the breath, sending this gratitude out into the world, slowly reconnecting with the body, gentle movement in the body. And you can come back, open your eyes if your eyes were closed. So we've seen today that we will not make perfect decisions. There is actually nothing like a perfect decision. But we can become the kind of person who can listen deeply to ourselves, to what we want before deciding. And that's the best we can do. We can give all of these voices a chance, and we can base our decision on what is important to us, um, even if it's not something that conventionally should be important to everyone else. So So then tomorrow, as we move further into this topic of decision making, we'll be practicing and becoming aware of, learning a bit more about how do we trust ourselves. So how do we build more self trust, and how do we know um, which voice which voice to trust. So that's going to be our attempt tomorrow, to see if we can connect with all of these different voices and figure out which is the one that's best for me in this moment. It might change tomorrow, and that's all right. So, with that, I'd end today's session. Thank you for being here, for spending your time here, for practicing together. We'll be back tomorrow, and have a good day, good evening, wherever you are. Um, we are live on Mighty Champions every day, same time. So you can join us from where you are. And yeah, see you all tomorrow. Bye.